Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. And today I'm going to ramble on a bit. I am in Indonesia. Yogyakarta. Yogyakarta or, Jogjakarta. I keep hearing it with the J sound here. And it's quite nice. I mean, the country itself is great. The place I have is great. The host is pretty hostile, but I don't know. That's extremely rare, and I'm still staying here, and it's mostly nice. Okay, you know it. But the hot water in the shower smells like sulfur. So there's a water heater on the wall, so I don't know if I thought it was maybe it's because the water's from a hot spring. And I asked the host, and he just said, yeah, the water usually smells like that. And I didn't ask why. I guess I could have. But I just asked, does it usually smell like that? And he said, yeah, usually. Does all of the water? Yeah, all of it. But it doesn't. The cold water doesn't smell like that. It's only the hot water. And hot springs smell like sulfur, and there's a bunch of volcanoes here? I don't know. It's a weird, stinky mystery. You don't smell like sulfur because the sulfur smell in water is usually just like trapped gas. So usually that goes away. So after you wash, you don't smell like sulfur after. But it's still, stinky while you're in the shower. I rinse with cold water afterward just so I don't think about sulfur water. I actually had a hot spring shower before in other countries, so I checked, is sulfur water safe for your skin? And it is safe. If you go to any natural hot spring, it'll smell very strongly like sulfur. So I'm used to it, but I prefer not to have it if I have a choice, but whatever. I'm only here for a month. And there's so many great things about Indonesia that I can handle a stinky shower for a few weeks. Well, I got new earphones because the Japanese airline ANA has these really cheap but well enough constructed earphones that are plug-in, so I can just tap them into the computer and check the quality of the audio whenever I want, which I do occasionally for this podcast. And just to make sure it sounds correctly. And singing. I tried singing a couple songs just for fun, because I've never done that before. And it really helps if I can get a better quality sound than from my laptop speakers, which are old, but it's crazy? I just installed the newest Linux Mint, and for the first time since I got this laptop, which is a long time. 6 years? 5 years now? The speakers have started working. There's some problem with the speakers in these laptops specifically, because I looked it up, and their speakers all fail pretty quickly and pretty reliably, like in the same way. But ever since I installed Linux Mint, after having crappy outward speakers after the first week for 5 years or something, the speakers sound normal. They sound like normal laptop speakers again. So apparently, I'm assuming there was some kind of software fix that no one has ever found, because I looked up each year I've had this laptop, how do I fix these speakers? Is there a better driver? And a couple people are like, yeah, if you use this, the problem goes away, but it never did. And now with Linux Mint, it appears to have gone away, and I just have clear speakers again, which is great. Who's complaining? Not this guy. But I was very surprised that there was a software solution. I've assumed after the first couple of years that it is a hardware thing. Because they were just very unclear, very quiet. And then with Linux Mint 22 or 0.2, I think, they started working perfectly. So that's great. That's just a great thing that happened. And now I have some new earphones, which are way smaller, was a huge one. My old white ones folded down, but they were still just large and took up a lot of space. These ones are over ear, easy to plug in, but they compact quite nicely. I can slip these in. They're going to take up much less room in my bag, which I want to mention because my bag I have way less stuff in there than I used to. I can now fit, including the laptop and my XLR microphone case. The XLR microphone is the kind you see in movies in a studio with the big cable coming out. So even with the cable and that whole setup, a desktop microphone stand, inside its case, everything fits inside my rucksack, which it didn't used to. I think I had extra shirts or something. I definitely had extra crap I didn't need. But when I was just in Hawaii, I did a quick inventory and I had a little bit of extra stuff and I got rid of all of that. And I didn't think it would make as much of a difference as it did. I'm pretty surprised, to be perfectly honest, how empty my bag felt. I kept worrying, like, did I leave something major? Have I forgotten the XLR mic or my laptop somewhere? Because it's not super light, but it is one not full rucksack. And it has all of my clothes, a large gaming laptop, video game controller, the XLR microphone setup, which is the microphone stand, the base plate, the holder for the actual microphone, a few different cables. And I've reconfigured my XLR mic like carrying case so I can fit all the cables and everything in there, except for the microphone stand itself, which is a long metal tube, so that won't fit in the case. But man, I've really efficientized my space. What? There has to be a word for that. Anyway, I efficientized my space in my rucksack, and that was really great to find out yesterday because I didn't even have to use my jacket luggage except for checking in for the Spirit flight, and I don't even know if I had to do it then. It says you're not allowed any luggage at all on the Spirit flight, but there was a bunch of people with bags. I don't know. Baggage policies are so weird, but usually you can bring one bag onto the airplane. So I put all of my clothes and luggage into my jacket that I sewed all the pockets into. And with all of that in, the only thing my laptop is basically a laptop and this carrying case with the microphone. And that's light enough and small enough that it could fit under my seat if I took out the back brace for the decathlon rucksack and just rolled or folded the rucksack in half. So that always works. So I did that to check in for the first of 3 consecutive Spirit flights, but it just seemed to me, and I'm not sure why, that I didn't need to keep the jacket luggage on the whole time once I got the bag tag. So when I got to security, I just took everything and packed up the rucksack again so that I wasn't wearing this heavy jacket full of crap. And yeah, I had no problems getting on the 3 following flights. And it was much more comfortable. Yeah, I'm really happy how efficient my case has become for the microphone. I couldn't fit the cables in before, the power cables and the XLR cable. But now everything fits in there except the metal tube that holds up the mic. But that's great. Like, it's so great to have everything in that one space, all my recording equipment. Including the portable mic, which I'm really excited to meet someone here in Indonesia that I can talk to about their country, because that thing I just plug into my phone, and the microphone's not bad, the lavalier mic that comes with the kit, that I heard anyway, so I'm going to try to find someone I can interview about Indonesia. And I've found a few, there are people who can speak English. A lot of the professionals seem to speak fluent English. And then there was a Malaysian flight attendant who spoke fluent Chinese, and I know there's a huge Chinese population here. I don't know, it'll be cool. I want to meet some people anyway. Maybe use the old dating apps and try to find someone to spend time with, or someone to travel with me permanently. I'm fine with that too. We'll just see what happens. I made a great pizza. I wrote that down on my list here. I just bought a pizza from Safeway and then minced mushrooms and onions and something else and put it on top of the pizza. I think that's all I did. But apparently I really liked it because I wrote it down on the list to share with everybody. Okay, let's move on. Sea slugs. Started finding a bunch of sea slugs still in Hawaii, but I had never found an octopus. And I didn't practice looking at pictures on the seafloor because I don't know, I didn't want to focus on my phone too much. I wasn't in Hawaii very long. And I was mostly just swimming and drinking beer, hanging out. So I didn't worry about researching the octopi too much. I feel like it would be so hard to find one. But I found a bunch of sea slugs, and if I find 8 of them, that's basically 8 octopus legs. Wireless mic, like I said, super cool. Very excited to try using it. Baby turtle. There's this one baby turtle out of all the regular turtles I swim with, and it always comes so much closer, and it came to shore, basically, like where the break ended and the sand began, and its fin was maybe 2 feet away from the end of the water, so I could see it very clearly just standing on the sand, and it just whisked by me. In Hawaii, that was the day before the last day I saw the turtle, like 2 days before I left or something. But that baby turtle was bold. It was crashing crazy waves, and he was still just like looping around and zip zoppity zooping, having his good old time. There was a bunch of other turtles, the big ones, but it was so crazy. The currents were so nuts that most of them were hiding under the coral. I didn't even go in to the water because it just seemed way stronger than normal. And I'm a pretty good swimmer, but it just seemed dangerous, so I didn't swim out past where I could stand. I waded in, but the water was crazy, and I was worried about getting ripped away because that's apparently a huge thing in Hawaii, riptides. Take you away and suck you under, and you are a dead person after that. Monk seals. Finally saw a bunch of monk seals. If I mentioned this before, my bad, but this was cool, so I'm going to mention it again. I don't think I did. I posted on it, posted about the seals in the Lemmy community, and people really got into that. So you can check it out there if you feel like it. But it was the first day things were kind of crazy, the waves, and there was just a big gray blob on the sand, and I was like, hey, I don't think that rock was here before. And as I walked toward it, I realized it was a monk seal, a big, I don't know how big, let's say 8 feet, pretty big monk seal stretched out on the sand. And I had to walk past it. I kept like 30, 40 feet distance. The rule for complete safety is 150 feet, according to like the Hawaii Fish and Wildlife, NOAA people. So if you want to be completely safe, stay 150 feet away, you're going to be safe. They can be dangerous seals if you get close to them. They have teeth, they're huge, there's no reason to antagonize them. But locals told me, like, if you just walk around them and don't approach them at all, it's okay, you can walk past them. So I was easily like 30 feet away from this guy, but I got a couple pretty good pics. I don't know, I really like the camera on this G54 phone. They look clear, even though like if you zoom in, things aren't super clear. It takes really nice pictures that don't like highlight the edges. I don't know, maybe it's just way more clear than the Pixel phone, which is the worst phone I've ever used. So I was really happy with how the pictures came out. And you should check them out in the Lemmy community. crazypeople.online/c/travel. It's a cool set of pictures of those guys. So I looped around this guy, walking into the water to make sure I gave him plenty of space. And he didn't even wake up. He was just chilling, sleeping, or she. I don't know. I cannot tell the morphological difference of seals yet at all. But she just kept napping, and I took a couple pictures and then went on my way and went out to the beach, but it was kind of wild. And then I looked out into the surf. I was gonna go out because it was kind of wild, but it wasn't like dangerous wild, the current or the waves. So I figured I could go out a little and swim, not too far. And then I saw this thing I hadn't seen before, like a sea monster tail, like an old sea monster tail on the maps. It's like curvy back, and then the tail's like flipping out. And I was like, the flip? And I kept watching, and I saw more like frothing water and splashes, and it was crazy waves. So I wasn't sure at first if it was an animal doing that or if it was just crazy waves crashing on a piece of coral. But then I saw it really clearly, and a seal flipper was up in the air, like straight up. And then I realized it was a seal doing flips and thrashing about in the water. And I don't think it was fighting anything. I watched it going crazy for a bit, and then I realized there was another one, and the two of them were kind of going wild together. Or one of them was, and the other one was right next to it. I don't think they were fighting either. I think they were mating, because the mating season just started in December. And now it was the end of December. And they have like an 8-month mating season, December to August, apparently. But it was pretty crazy to see, because they were like really thrashing, like leaping half their bodies out of the water. And like I said, like one fin sometimes would stay out of the water and then slap back down into the water. It was weird. And I realized someone had told me they had seen that at the beach like a few days ago, and I had no idea what they were talking about. And then, yeah, when I was watching these seals, I was like, oh, this must be what they saw. They must have seen two seals either fighting or more likely mating and just going wild. They were really thrashing. Like, yeah, it looked super dangerous. And I decided not to go at all into the water because they weren't far out either. I got pretty good pictures of them going crazy. They were maybe 50 feet from where the water started in the beach, like right where I usually swim at that beach. And they were just like flipping and throwing their tails and flippers up out of the water and spinning around. Like, it was crazy to see. And the two of them stayed together, just going in this little area, 50 feet off the shore. And then they moved on and kept going. But then I saw just a minute later, maybe it was the same one that was swimming with the other one. Maybe there's one male going after all the females. But another one shuffled out of the water. I was like, well, look, the waves are crazy. I've been here like an hour. I'll just go back and grab some food and come back a day where the waves are not so crazy. And the current was crazy too. Like, you could just see it pulling the turtle straight across. The seals had enough heft that they weren't completely dominated by the currents, but it looked strong enough to pull a human for sure. So I was heading back, and I turned around after I saw those two seals in the water swim away. And then when I turned back to go back to where I had entered, the seal that I had originally passed by was still laying right where it was, so there was plenty of room to go around it. But when I got to within, 50 feet or something, another one scooted up on the beach, and they moved like a giant inchworm, just like schlumping up the sand and up all over the rocks and everything. Their skin must be pretty tough. And he inchwormed his way up to the other seal and started nosing around what I assume is her, because I'm still thinking this is all mating behavior. And they started like chasing each other around and sort of flirting with each other and playing with each other. And I was like, well, I'm probably not going that way. Because if there's one thing I know, you don't interrupt mating animals. That's when they're the most dangerous, except, maybe in front of their young. But then they both scooted up super far, like as high up as the sand was. And I was like, well, I'll get more than 30 feet distance. So I went all the way like into the water and started walking around them. But as soon as I got within like 30 feet, one of them whipped their head around and lifted it up and started shaking its head at me. And I was like, oh, maybe because I'm blocking his entrance into the water and they need to go into the water to mate or something. But it was very clear that he was like, don't do it. And I was like, okay, giant animal, I won't. And I just turned around and looked for other trails. I also didn't know how else to exit because these two seals were completely blocking the exit to the beach that I usually use, and I only knew that one trail. And I tried a few other trails and none of them worked. So I just walked the opposite way on the beach, and I tried every opening into the trees that I could find, and finally one of them led to a road, and then I walked along that road back to the parking lot. But it was pretty crazy. Like, to see first the resting monk seal, and then those two, I'm pretty sure, mating, and then this other seal climbs out onto the shore so it can try sniffing around another one, and they're playing, and then its head was like a cobra, just like checking me out. He was just letting me know, I see you, and if you try and go past this route, you're in trouble. And I didn't go any closer to them than I did to the original one on the shore, but it's just, I think it was that he was trying to get it on, and I was blocking their route into the water. Still a super cool experience, obviously, seeing all these giant animals just chilling, just being their ding-dong selves, as Sam Robertson would say. Well, everything's always changing, as it always does, and I bought my plane tickets, and there's a new type of insurance they offer that I might have seen before, but it's really prominent now. Airline bankruptcy insurance, which is kind of crazy. But that means that if you book a flight and the airline goes bankrupt between when you booked your flight and like you taking your flight, you can file a claim and receive insurance money for the airline going bankrupt. And it's not super expensive, maybe 1% of the ticket price or something. But it's just crazy. They offer so many different insurance. And okay, I should talk about insurance scam. Insurance basically being a scam almost all of the time. Health insurance wise, you can fly to most countries and afford the 5% of US medical costs. So, but you know, if you're living in a country where you need health insurance, what am I talking about? I'm a traveler. I don't know. Maybe you guys need health insurance. I don't use it because if you need a filling filled, it's like $10 in most countries. If you need a major surgery, it's $1,000 to maybe $10,000 for like the most expensive heart surgery across the world. But for most common problems, you'll be able to afford it just by traveling to the right country. Okay, but whatever, health insurance, that's a good idea. The airline insurance, I don't buy any of those because they seem pretty ridiculous. Because what they don't tell you, which is my problem with most insurances, the companies are legally liable, like they have to fix these problems, or nobody will use their services, and two, they'll be violating the law in most countries. So they offer you something like transfer protection insurance. So if you have 3 flights in a row and you miss one leg of your flight because the first plane is late, so you miss the second plane, they'll offer you insurance for that when you're buying the ticket, and you can buy it, but they're legally obligated to cover that leg anyway. If you book the ticket with a company, they're going to cover that. They have transfer protection. I've never heard of a company that doesn't have transfer protection because the fault was of the airline that didn't get you to the next plane on time. It was no fault of your own. So I have missed flights. I've never gotten transfer protection insurance, but transfers are always protected, so you don't need that. Airline bankruptcy insurance, you could get it. I guess if you're like a year in front, but if an airline's going bankrupt and you're booking your flights 2 to 4 weeks before you leave, like I recommend, 1 to 4 weeks, really. 1 to 3 weeks. You don't have to book your flights super in advance. The cost doesn't change very much. More than 1 or 2 weeks before the flight, there's almost no difference in cost and it goes up and down all the time. So in 2 weeks, your airline is not going to go bankrupt and cease all operations immediately. That usually takes a little while, so that's something you just don't have to worry about. And this is for filing a claim, if your airline goes bankrupt, you're probably going to get your ticket refunded. It's just not, you don't have to worry about it because if you are a traveler, you have money. Like, the money that you would maybe lose from your ticket, you've saved how many more thousands than that from living outside of the US. So it would suck if you did lose it, but it's such a small chance that, one, the airline will go bankrupt, two, that they'll go bankrupt so fast it'll affect your flight, as in all the operations will wind down and cease before your flight occurs. That's also very unlikely. And the very unlikely occurrence that you're not going to be refunded your ticket after the airline goes bankrupt. All of that stuff, it's just another way for them to get another $5 from you. It was just a little bizarre because both airlines offered this airline bankruptcy insurance protection. But anyway, so let's move on. The commonest thing I hear from people who don't travel telling me that the only reason anyone can travel is because they are lucky or rich. But the whole thing is, at least for US Americans, if you're traveling, you're saving lots of money. And it's really for most people. Because I know people from everywhere, and most of them travel because it's not so much where you're from. Once you are traveling, it's very apparent how much cheaper it is, how much cheaper you can live in terms of housing and food than in your home country. And you don't have as many ties, so you don't have obligations to pay. You don't have to pay for renter's insurance. You don't have to pay for car insurance and a whole bunch of... You're not paying any utilities. You just don't have to pay so many expenses that you do have to pay as a sedentary person. Travelers just pay way less money. So, like I've said 100 times, it's about $500 US a month to live in most countries in the world, and then in the expensive ones or the ones that are experiencing housing crises, which are usually the same countries, it's about $1,000 US per month, and you can live very comfortably in almost all of the world. But the mentality, if you grow up as a sedentary person, which most people do, most people don't grow up traveling, there's no conception of how much money we put into car insurance and health insurance and renter's insurance and all the utilities we pay and Wi-Fi, just groceries. There's so much extra cost tacked on for a sedentary person to live in, quote unquote, the system. Like, to participate in the system, you have to have that car insurance that you don't need as a traveler. Obviously, yeah, if you're renting a car from Hertz or something, you'll need it. But you usually don't need, especially ride shares these days, you just don't need to rent anything. Like Indonesia is a great example for that. I just took a 40-minute ride share for $2, and I tipped, that's including the tip. It was 50,000. Oh no, so that's $3. And then I tipped an extra 75 cents, so $3.75 for a 40-minute ride across the city. And I don't have to pay for gas, I don't have to pay for maintenance for the vehicle, I don't have to pay for insurance. There's just so few costs as a traveler compared to as a sedentary person. And if you want a house, if you want to be sedentary, that's fine. This is purely financial, because a lot of people bring this up to me when I'm traveling and I talk to them, and when I'm in the US, people bring it up much more because I speak that language. I'm talking to more people when I'm visiting. So I was just in Hawaii though, and I was talking to this one guy. I bring this up because when I was in Hawaii, I was talking to this one guy who walked out of these huge apartment buildings that are clearly in a nicer neighborhood, and there's no apartment under 2,000 on Oahu that I saw. So he's paying at least $2,000 per month and probably more to live in these apartments. Because when I was looking, like, normal apartments, like $3,000, $4,000, and these looked like luxury condos more than regular apartments. But for the sake of the argument, we'll say he's paying at least $2,000 USD, not including utilities, not including Wi-Fi, not including car maintenance and all that stuff I mentioned. And he walked out and saw me heading by and asked me about the rucksack. And he was Filipino, I think, so he had a bit of an accent, but he could communicate fine. He'd clearly been living in the States for a while. But he asked me about traveling, and he also must have come here from the Philippines, which is, that's why I say sedentary person rather than US person or like Western European. It really is, if you start living in one place, you just get so used to the extra costs of living in that system instead of not paying for all of those insurances and maintenance fees and HOA fees and whatever the heck society has tacked on to what should be just like walking down the street or mowing your lawn or whatever. Everything costs money if you're not traveling, but if you're traveling, then there's much fewer costs. So we started talking about traveling. And this guy who just walked out of the condos asked me how long I had been traveling, and I told him 15 years, and he said, "You're so lucky." And I am lucky. I'm very aware that I'm super lucky that I grew up in a native English-speaking country, because it makes you an insane amount of money, and you don't have to get certifications or work very hard. For 20 hours a week, you're making a luxury wage in the entire world for working 20 hours a week teaching English, just speaking English 45 minutes at a time, not including breaks. I'm definitely lucky. But he was saying you're lucky that you can travel so much. And I'm like, well, I travel because it's so much cheaper. It's just way easier to travel. And he looked super skeptical and shook his head at me and then said, well, not everybody can afford it, and sort of huffed and went away. But which is a very common response, especially by someone who's sedentary. They just don't believe how few costs and fees you have to pay as a traveler. So that's why I repeat this so much, that as a traveler, you are paying fewer costs overall. He said, not everybody can afford, and walked away. But we're standing outside of his luxury condo apartment in Hawaii. So even if he's living with a bunch of people, which like a lot of Asian families do. So let's say he was living with 4 other adults, and I think he lived alone, like from what we were talking about, and he had 2 kids. But let's say they had 4 adults in their house and they were all equally paying the rent. They're each paying $500 a month to pay the very, I assume, probably underestimated $2,000 per month. If it was $5,000 per month, that would make total sense. I saw plenty of $4,000 apartments to rent on Oahu that were nowhere near as nice as these luxury condos. But even if there were 4 adults living together in this tiny 2-bedroom condo, because even the luxury apartments in Hawaii are super tiny, like that, with the $500 each, they could all be living in separate condos larger than the one they're sharing now in the rest of the world. Definitely in the Philippines, certainly in the Philippines. Less than $200 a month will net you an apartment nicer than the condos I've seen on Oahu, than the apartments I've seen on Oahu. So it was very odd hearing that again from somebody from one of those countries I personally know, because I lived in the Philippines, are incredibly cheap. Not everybody can afford it. But the person saying that can afford something that is a housing. He can afford housing that is literally 10 times more expensive than the housing he would afford back in his home country. It really is just about mindset. Like in this specific instance, it's not always about mindset. If you have a severe physical disability, it's much harder to perform certain tasks. Undoubtedly, I'm not saying, you can use your mind to get through anything. But financially, even people, it doesn't matter, even if they're from one of the affordable countries, if they are sedentary people, it's so difficult, apparently, because I've talked to many people about this, to imagine living outside of the sedentary system, where they're like, okay, just sign up here. It's only $30 for the apartment association, and it's only $40 for your monthly property insurance, and it's only $60 for your monthly car insurance, and it's only $300 a month for the gas for your car, and it's only $1,000 a month for the maintenance on your vehicle, and it's only $40 a month for the wine. And you just have these costs that stack up like crazy. Whereas if money is a problem, that is the main, you should be looking at traveling. You don't have to pay utilities. Your data is, what was it here in Indonesia? It's like $2 for a month of 6 gigabytes of data, I think, is the place I got mine. It's just so oh no, I didn't get that. I got the airport one, and that was, I paid a premium of $8 for the entire month. But it's so much less expensive to live abroad and to live specifically as a traveler, because you don't have to pay all those maintenance and gas and insurance fees. Those are covered by the things you are renting. You rent your apartment, Wi-Fi, utilities, covered. You get a ride share, gas, maintenance, covered. You take the bus, gas, maintenance, covered. I wanted to bring it up again because it was such an odd juxtaposition. This guy from one of the most affordable countries I've ever visited telling me how lucky I am and not everybody can afford it, when he can clearly afford a condo that was 10, I believe probably closer to 20 times as expensive as a similar sized housing in his home country. Not everybody can afford it. Okay, but clearly you can afford it. He sounded personally affronted that I was letting him know that traveling is less expensive than living in the US. But once you're in that system, just like anything, it's difficult to see outside of that system. That's a huge reason why I travel, so that I can consistently remind myself that the systems outside of what I understand could be different. And I keep pushing myself because they almost always are different. I am shocked at how cheap Indonesia was. I thought after India, I would not find another country that was as cheap as India. Like, China used to be the cheapest country, and then I was in Vietnam, I was like, well, that's pretty cheap. Thailand's very cheap. But then I was in India, and I was like, whoa, this is seriously cheap. This is like $30, 30 US cents for a meal cheap. And now I am in Indonesia, and they basically have India prices. Like, maybe the housing is a little more expensive, $200 per month for a very nice apartment, like multi-rooms, air conditioning, and all that. But for what you would expect, it would be about the same in India. And all the food's $1 here. The all-you-can-eat buffets are $8, which is more expensive than Thailand. But the housing is like twice as expensive in Thailand as it is here in Indonesia. The buses are all, 10 cents? 15 cents maybe? Yeah, 15 cents probably is closer. Things are so inexpensive here. So yeah, I decided to try a new country. I haven't been here before. I'm shocked again at how much money I'm going to save by living here. I'm just so glad to be out of the US again, honestly. It was fun in Hawaii. I really liked swimming with the turtles and seeing those seals and like all the fish. It was really cool seeing all of that stuff. But the desperation, even in Hawaii where everything's, paradise, everyone's living, there's a few people on the beach who are clearly just living there and like they seem kind of happy. But most of the people on the beach look disheveled and desperate. And then when you go to all the houses, those people don't look super calm themselves. Being back in the US just feels, there's just this sense of desperation from everyone. Like walking around in a supermarket, you'll see someone walk over to an apple and pick it up and be like, ooh, $2.50 for an apple. $2.50 for an apple. They are how much is that? That's like they're like 10 cents. So they're maybe $1 a kilogram here in Indonesia for apples. Like maybe. I remember seeing a tag that was like 2,500 rupiah for per 100 grams yesterday in the supermarket. But it's just, it's so rough seeing people in the US like look at an apple and be like, too much, can't afford an apple. And they have to choose like the one they know are not as good. The ones they know are like 2 months old, shipped from Indonesia or someplace, marked up by 100 different regulatory agencies and countries that own the fruit market in the US. Or people talking about rent, you can see rental classifieds listings. It's rough. Okay, on my flight here, let's talk a bit about that because that's more fun and we can end up on fun stuff. So I couldn't access the Wi-Fi, and then in my head was just like, just type in 192.168.1.1, because I couldn't access the Wi-Fi at the airport. And I was like, wait, isn't that old? That's that like old internet router thing. And I typed it in and it worked. It took me to the sign-in page. So that was cool. Random thing. Thanks, brain. Okay, got on the Japanese airline from Hawaii to Narita, because that would take me to Manila or Singapore or whatever, and then over to Yogyakarta finally. But I had a 7-hour flight on Spirit Airlines, a United States company, and they made everybody on the flight dump out water, and then they didn't let you refill it before you got on the plane. You were not allowed to bring water on Spirit Airlines, which I thought was crazy, and all the waitresses and stewardesses were like, this is nuts. To empty to check every bag before we got on the plane, empty everyone's water, and then not even have tap water, not provide water at all unless you wanted to buy a 250 can of seltzer water on a 7-hour flight, was crazy and seemed illegal and unbelievable. It was unbelievable when I realized what they were saying. A waitress asked me what I wanted, and I said water, and she said, oh, we have seltzer water. And I was like, oh, that's weird, you don't have. Okay, sure, seltzer water. And then it turns out the seltzer water I had to pay for, and I was like, well, where's water? And they're like, yeah, we don't have water on the flight. What? So that was just insane to find out. And then I get on ANA, the Japanese flight from Honolulu to Tokyo. They had 2 full meal services and 3 drink services, 2 of which included alcohol. So I had a glass of white wine, a Sapporo beer, because I didn't know they had beer in the first place, or I would have got beer. And then a bunch of 2 full meals. One had udon noodles, fried chicken, rice, steamed vegetables, roll, butter, nori. Oh, a small half pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, or 1/8 of a pint, whatever, the tiny Haagen-Dazs ice cream pack. Like, you got Haagen-Dazs also. And other stuff for the first meal. Oh, and a green salad, and fresh pineapple. And then the second meal was a tuna fish sandwich, a bag of chips, and a cookie, and another drink. And it's just so, as soon as you leave the US, all human courtesy and decency and customer service returns to the world that you've always heard about, or that you see in movies. And I was talking to someone in the States about this, just they couldn't believe that all those things still exist as long as you're not in the US. And I just had to explain, like I explained many times, if you're in the US, the education system is not for education. It's for extracting money from the students. If you're in the healthcare system in the US, it's not designed to provide health. It's designed to extract money from its patients. If you're flying on an airplane in the US, it's not designed to transport you from one place to another. It's designed to extract money from the passengers. There's no customer care in the US, and there really wasn't for a very long time. It's always been catering to the wealthy and extracting from the less fortunate for many of the systems in the US. But abroad, in Central America, in South America, in Asia, in Europe, transportation systems are meant to transport people. Healthcare systems are meant to provide health. It's just a different world outside of the US. And it's very difficult for anyone growing up in the US to understand that, or anyone who has grown up, because that's the only system they know, where anytime they take part in any type of system in the US, their money is being extracted from them. Their finances are being actively extracted. So they think that's what the whole world is like. But it's not. In most countries, the systems, whatever they are, healthcare, education, transport, are designed to achieve that end, not to simply extract money like they are in the US. So it was like this weight was lifted off my shoulders as soon as I got onto A&A and they served the first drink service and had all this laden tray with wine and sodas and water, and you could just choose what you wanted. I was like, yeah, that's what it's like out here. Even just a few weeks in Hawaii was enough to make me forget that the rest of the world is sane and just like, yeah, of course they offer normal drinks on an international airplane flight for 9 hours or whatever. That's just, you have to give people water. There's plenty of free water and I got some. And that's what it's like across the world. If you're living in the US and you're very depressed and don't know what's happening, just talk to me. It's so nice out here. It's so much cheaper. It's so much more courteous and respectful of basic human decency. Okay, and I am in Indonesia, so I'm going to briefly talk about this because it is the easiest country I've ever entered. And some are pretty easy. India was pretty easy, not super easy. What have I been in recently? Colombia, pretty easy. But Indonesia took it to another level. I decided to get the visa on arrival, which are usually a pain in the butt because you have to fill out a form, get your picture taken, wait in line, pay the fee, and then you get your visa on arrival. But the whole process can easily take 45 minutes to an hour. Like, it takes a while when everybody has to do it. Not so in Indonesia. The visa on arrival is the easiest I have encountered in the entire world. I realized I went straight to the immigration counter and I said, sorry, do I need the visa first? And he's like, yes, you have to get it first. Sorry, it'll take a little while. And he pointed me back to a counter that was like 40 feet behind the immigration desk. And I walked over there and someone in front of me was finishing up their transaction and they left and she said, hi, well, visa on arrival. Okay. And how would you like to pay? Cash or card? Card. She was like, great. She tapped a thing for maybe 10 seconds. Oh, I gave her my passport. She filled out the information. It really was 10 seconds. It was so fast. And then she said, okay, pay. And I tapped my card and she ripped off 2 tickets and handed them to me. And that was it. It said visa on arrival on the purple ticket. That was it. It took less than a minute. It was crazy. And I didn't even leave the counter. I just stared at the tickets and then looked up at her. It's like, was that it? And she like laughed and she was like, yep, it's really easy now. And I gave one of the purple tickets to the immigration guy, and that was it. So that was like, he was like, oh, it's going to take 3 minutes. Sorry for the wait or whatever. Also, nobody waited in Indonesia. I couldn't believe how empty the airport was. People probably know something I don't, and that's why they're not here, but we had a full flight. It was packed and there was nobody. I never waited in line for more than a minute, like through the customs, through immigration, and for getting my visa. There's only one person. It was just so efficient and fast. And the visa on arrival process clearly demonstrated that I was blown away. I was really impressed. So usually I get my SIM card in the city because it's always way cheaper, like less than half the price than at the airport. And that was true here also. But because it was so easy to do everything, I'm willing to pay a few extra dollars if I know the process will be easy or if I think it will. So I just got my SIM card also. And like many countries, that took 1 minute. It was just the guy, it was 200,000, which is, $10. And he offered me, 150,000, which is like $9. And I was like, And he was like, 130,000. I was like, okay, sure, whatever. Which I'm still paying like $7. But it's just, yeah, whatever. So he took my phone, put in a SIM card, entered a thing on his phone after a minute, and boom, I have data for a month. and it's just that easy. It would have cost $1 extra. When I got into the city, I was like, okay, yeah, it was twice as much, but I literally had to do nothing. He spoke perfect English and just explained to me exactly how everything worked, gave me my phone number. It was too easy not to pay the extra $3 for, or whatever it was. And then boom, like not out of the, and then I went to the ATM. They have no fee transactions, no fee ATMs here. I still have a stupid US debit card that I'm using, so I should probably switch already, because I do, even if there's a no fee transaction, my bank is still like, well, you just keep paying a transaction fee from us anyway, for no reason, because it's just, so like I said, in the US, it's designed to extract money. It doesn't cost them anything to do it. They're already charging a fee for exchanging the money to the foreign currency. They're just taking money just because it's a US company and they can just do that. But I think I have to switch to Revolut or Chime or something that doesn't do that, because at this point it's just ridiculous. And I think I'm going to be traveling for the foreseeable, so just makes sense to get a no-fee transaction card. And I hear Revolut is the way to go. Someone told me about Chime, but they have a couple restrictions compared to Revolut that Revolut just doesn't have. Of course, the thing is, I'm only spending like $75 or something to take out from the bank, maybe $150 at a time. So even if I pay 10%, I'm paying a $15 fee, but I'm paying that in a country where I'm saving such an insane amount of money, it doesn't matter relative, even if I'm paying a 10% fee from my idiot bank. But obviously, yeah, I want to avoid that, so I'm probably going to go with Revolut next, and I'll let you know if I do. Okay, my Airbnb host, who has been weird and hostile since I booked this place, is still weird and hostile. Hostile. Yeah, still weird and hostile. But the place is nice. It's really nice, and the neighborhood's really nice, and honestly, there's not much to worry about. The only thing in my head is like, this guy seems so angry at me that I didn't agree to pay for electricity after I booked a non-refundable reservation that had no utilities listed in the listing description. I'm afraid he's going to leave me a bad review, which I never get on Airbnb, just because I'm not paying for utilities he didn't ask me to pay for until after booking the reservation. And again, on Airbnb, if they write in the description you have to pay electricity, then you do. But that's extremely rare on Airbnb. And if it's not listed, but they do list something like Wi-Fi, any electrical appliance, then that electrical appliance has to have the electricity supplied to it the duration of your stay, which was what this listing was. So yeah, I'm just worried I'll get a bad review, which I've never gotten before, and I don't want. But it's been a decade and a half, so I guess eventually I had to risk getting one anyway. And so when I checked in here, I was like, maybe he'll be chill now that I checked in. And he just was not chill. He was very upset that I asked about the sulfur water. He was upset that I asked about a towel for the shower. It's been very strange. I think I actually have to ask Airbnb what I do about a hostile host. But he hasn't crossed any explicit lines. He's just kind of rude and non-communicative. Like, he didn't send check-in information, which you're supposed to, and he didn't. So he's just not being a good host. But he's not, again, explicitly crossing any lines, so I don't think there's much. And I'm not going to report him. There's not much to report. It's just, I don't know why this host is so upset, other than he was hoping he could charge extra fees, which, that's definitely against Airbnb policy. You definitely can't do that. You can't just decide on extra fees after somebody books a reservation. So I don't know if he's more upset with, I don't know. It's so weird. But life is so easy. That's all I have to worry about now, I guess. I'm hoping that if he leaves a bad review, it's going to be very personal, because that is against Airbnb policies. It should be about what the guest did wrong. So if you're just like, this guest is so irritating and he keeps telling me I'm a piece of crap or something like that, they have all the message history, and then if you just don't like the guest, that's not something you can leave a review about. So I'm hoping he actually does that, because I always stay well within the Airbnb regulations, because I don't want to ever be in a situation where I've done something wrong and have to give up the convenience of this Airbnb community. So, whatever. Things are fine. And I really do like this neighborhood and the house, and all the people I've met in the neighborhood have been super cool too. So it's going to be a good stay regardless. Pretty convenient too. I've already found several local food vendors that $1 for a plate of food and very well made, handmade food right in front of you. So yeah, there's good food. And then there's a hypermarket nearby, so I can get any groceries I need. The only thing that's not nearby is beer. I was going to have a bunch of beer yesterday for my first day in Indonesia, but I didn't realize how restrictive the policies had become. I have to go into the city, and I deliberately chose a place outside of the city to live in, so it'd be quieter. And it is very quiet, and I do not regret that decision at all. And they also have like those giant iced lemon teas everywhere that I love. So maybe I'll just be healthy this month. Or I'm going to go to the zoo, I know that, so I will have to go into the city eventually. But there's going to be a lot of time out here in the boonies, out of the ring road, where I will certainly be a bit more healthy. But either today or like whenever I go to the zoo, I'm gonna get a bunch of the Indonesian beer, because I always want to try the beer in the country. It always tastes better. And yeah, have a little party. And then I'll settle down a bit. But it's funny, because the beer's difficult to get, just like in Morocco and Malaysia, other places where beer is kind of difficult to get, I'm just like, I just won't drink it then. If it's sort of difficult to get to, then I'm like, forget about it then. Who needs it? Which is really nice, because I like drinking a lot. So whenever I am living in a country where it's slightly inconvenient, and I'm like, then I just won't drink it. That's always a good indication to me that I'm not as addicted to the sauce as I sometimes worry about when I'm having a party vacation like Hawaii. Anyway, I'll talk more about Indonesia next episode. I'm going to talk about the cost of living, which has already shocked me at how cheap everything is. And just how nice people have already been, even though it's only been a couple days. And how beautiful everything is. Oh, I got to talk about the train. So there's a bunch of stuff to talk about. But I've been talking for a long time already. I hope you're having a great day. I'm having a good day. Now that I'm back in a house, it's going to be easy to make a bunch of episodes so I can get caught up on all my audio stuff. If you want to talk to me, hit me up at bitofarambler@gmail.com or bitofarambler on Blue Sky and Lemmy. Especially Lemmy, the travel community is very active. So Bit of a Rambler on Lemmy, you'll see the travel community I moderate. And it's travel information and then fun pictures from now Indonesia. It's been great. I hope you're having a great day. I will talk to you soon.